we are just at the point where we first got espers. So
So not too far.
Not too far. The game is really just starting to open up. Okay, I'm thinking it doesn't... X is what answers the question. Shift, backspace, escape goes here. Maybe it doesn't want us to fly right now. Maybe it's like totally
forcing
us into this linear idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Let's Gay. I'm Johnny Jungle Guts, the Top Notch Gamer, aka the Top Notch Gamer. And in the studio today, we have the Dreamy Trip Hop Dream, Nick Malkin.
Hello, everyone.
Musician, recording artist. Nick, how long have you been living in LA?
This spring will make 7 years of living in LA.
Wow.
It went by in a flash.
What brought you out here?
Mostly just, I guess, wanting to play music. I had lived all over the East Coast, and I was living back in New Jersey, where we're both from.
That's right.
And I just really liked what was going on in the music scene in LA at the time. And I just quit my jobs and drove out here, and sort of expected to stay for just a little while, and that was about 7 years ago.
Wait, but why did you quit your jobs and move out here?
I was just at sort of a loss for where to go at the time. I was 22 or 23. I had lived in New York for a little while. I lived in Pittsburgh for a couple of years.
Oh boy.
I lived in upstate New York for a little while. And I was living back in New Jersey, my mother's place, and I was working 2 jobs, and I was saving up money, but not sure what I was saving up this money for.
Right.
Or where I was going to go next. But most of my musical focus had sort of shifted away from New York and towards LA. And I had some friends who were living all over the country, in New Orleans and in Texas, and a couple out here. And so I just thought, like, well, I'll just take a real long driving trip across the country, visit a few friends along the way, and if someplace in particular agrees with me, maybe I'll stay there for a little while.
So you weren't even
I wasn't really planning on moving, on living in LA or anything.
And some of the people you met on the way out here or hung out with on the way out here actually had a little bit of an impact on what you ended up doing musically for a little while, would you say?
Not really. I mean, it was just sort of like a domino effect of a friend of mine in New Orleans would hook me up with friends of hers that were sort of traveling westward, and I hung out with them for a little while. I don't know. Everything felt very full of purpose, I guess.
Sure.
At the time. And then I got to LA, and I only had a couple of friends out here, and was sleeping on my friend's couch for a little while, and I thought, like, well, I'll stay here for. I guess I was gonna play a show or something, and I said, well, I'll play this show, which is in like a couple weeks, and then I'll move on from there. Because I thought I had this kind of classically East Coast prejudice towards Los Angeles, where I thought that maybe I would that was more of like a San Francisco person, or even like a Portland person or something.
Oh yeah.
Which now I don't feel that way at all.
You really know you're not.
Yeah. But at the time I sort of had these misconceptions. But then after a few weeks of living here, I just really loved it. I felt like I'd found some sort of musical and social utopia at the time, and so.
What year was that?
I stuck around. That was 2008.
Oh wow.
Or 9. Maybe it was 9.
And how old are you, Nick?
I turned 30 in October.
Oh my gosh.
How old are you, Johnny?
I am 28.
Oh, okay.
Soon to be 29.
When's your birthday?
June 9th.
Oh, okay.
1987. Can you read me this little bit of text right here?
Okay. If you check the pot in the weapon shop, you'll find a tincture inside. There's also a clock in the back of the relic shop that has an elixir inside.
Oh,
you
got that.
You got it already?
Yeah.
Lastly, examine the barrel beside the inn to get a potion. Did you get that?
No, some of these items are so unnecessary, but you still gotta.
Potion's pretty weak. The elixir's the one you want.
The elixir's good. Okay, that's the armor shop. Anything else?
do some shopping, and that's about all there is to do here. There are 2 optional towns you may wish to visit. If you choose not to, then simply head northwest to Vector. The first of these 2 optional towns is the town of Maranda to the west, and then a little bit south. Let's see. Might want to go to Maranda and get a Revivify.
Okay.
And a Remedy.
All right.
Right over there.
Okay.
You can also rent a Chocobo.
That's good.
In Maranda.
All right.
Should you so desire.
Have you played this game before? You have, right?
I have, yeah. It's been a very long time, though. This is not one that I've revisited anytime recently.
Yeah, did you beat it?
I must have, yeah. It's hard to tell. I'm trying to remember sometimes which was like a legitimate playthrough and which was like a sort of half playthrough, half pouring over like a walkthrough or like a strategy guide.
Sure. Oh shoot, we got.
Because I definitely played this for the first time during my like initial Final Fantasy binge as a young man.
Sure.
Which was a post Final Fantasy VII binge of the older titles.
Yeah. And I have never beaten this game. That's why I'm playing through it now.
Is this but you played it before? You just
yeah, I've played like 2/6 of the way through, and then or no, I mean I played it 6 times, probably like 2/3 of the way through.
Oh yeah.
Like really far, but I've never.
Is there one place in particular that you tend to stop at?
Yes, I would say pretty much just short of the final tower, and it's never for any particular reason. I just, you know, when you're just playing a video game for a long time, then you eventually get bored.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem I think with some of the older RPGs is they just have these points in the narrative where it starts to really sag.
They're also 60 hours long.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even that you get bored, you just forget to play it and then you just stop playing it.
Yeah.
It's almost more like that.
Yeah.
So I guess you do get bored. Your drive decreases a little bit.
Yeah.
Right,
I think also with some of these older games where like the the graphics are a little bit more limited. For me, sometimes I'll end up getting stuck at a place where like I'm just not into the aesthetic so much, or I'm not into the music so much. It's like a little bit too monochromatic or dismal. You know, I feel like a lot of these old RPGs have like a certain, like a particular passage or like a couple of levels where it's very industrial or like brown or gray or something, and you just start to get bored of looking at that over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where is Maranda?
Southwest, I think it said. It's,
all right.
Yeah, you go to the west and then a little bit south. So, let's see what we can scrounge up there.
All right. So, you do music.
I am a musician.
But you're very... okay, full disclosure, I feel like I'm pretty close personal friends with Nick, but I feel like he hardly ever tells me what he's doing, music-wise. I feel like...
You're going east now.
Okay. Southwest, you said it was?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit tight-lipped. I feel like I mostly see you at game night.
That's true.
Occasionally we see each other out in public at an opening or something like that.
Yeah.
Or at the LA Book Fair this past weekend, momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like in some ways game night almost functions as like a time out from everyone else's
art
real life
shit
in a sense, or art shit, and there's no one putting on airs, or not that talking about your work is to put on airs at all.
Right.
But, I feel like no one at game night is really ever talking about what they're working on. It's just like a lot of guys
I guess
being
that's
goofy,
true. I don't
playful
know.
and momentarily regressive or something.
Right. I mean, I think I talk about it, but, you know, I'm very...
You're very frank. And,
I'm very frank.
With your... There's actually... I guess, yeah. If you survey game night, it's a lot of people who are kind of quiet about their work. Max doesn't really talk about his...
Oh, Max is very quiet. How long have you... Max is really one of your best friends. How long have you...
Max is one of my best friends.
How long have you known Max?
I've known Max... If I moved here in 2009, I met Max when he moved back to LA from Chicago, where he was going to school, which was maybe... just probably a year after, so in 2010 or early 11 or something like that. So I've known Max for the majority of my time in Los Angeles. So about 5 or 6 years or something.
And you collaborated with him on your radio show on K-Chung.
We collaborated on our K-Chung show for about 2 years, doing a weekly show. A little bit more sporadically towards the end. But,
sure.
We lived together for 3 years or so, something like that.
And you toured in Japan?
And we went to Japan together early last year.
Yeah. What was that for?
That was for, it was an after-hours tour of Japan. After Hours is my musical project, and it kind of came out of a collaborative sort of sound art thing that Max and I did together on K-Chung. When we lived together, we had turntables and scattered musical equipment in the living room, and we would just kind of like, come home late at night and then fool around on the turntables and things like that.
So Max was part of the live show in Japan.
We would DJ together in Japan, but the live performance was just me.
Oh, okay.
But we DJ'd as a duo out there.
And how'd you get big in Japan?
I think it's yet to happen, but Max and I had been talking for a long time about going to Japan together and trying to figure out some way to, craft like a tour for the two of us.
Sure.
To take this, sort of like a paid vacation together or something. And I don't know, I just finally put my money where my mouth was and figured it out. It was mostly just incessant emailing with people who don't speak very good English.
Wow.
I don't know.
It was
a DIY operation.
There was no booking or anything like that. It was all you. Okay.
My friend Damon, another musician who I've toured with, a friend of mine, he makes music under the name Magic Touch. He also lives in LA. He had been to Japan a couple times before, so he was helping me out with contacts and sending introductory emails and stuff like that with certain people. But yeah, it was mostly like a DIY thing.
Now, you started out making rock music, vocals, everything, and then now you've sort of completely shifted to a electronic sound.
Yeah, it's true.
What precipitated that?
I played guitar and sang for a long time and made sort of disjointed, kind of folky music, outsider-ish music, for a long time.
Folk.
And then, yeah, folky. I wouldn't say it's straightforwardly folk music.
Who would be a frame of reference for that type of a?
Like Jandek,
Okay, I think I kind of know what that is.
It's stripped down minimalist sort of folk music that's removed from an expectation of verse and chorus. It wasn't very songy, it was a little bit more abstracted, I guess.
Sure.
And flirted with noise and drone and that kind of stuff. And so I did that for a while, and I was living in a house this is when I was first living with Max, and we had another roommate named Ben, and I was just getting a little bit bored of the kind of music that I was making, and I was also finding it hard to work on that kind of music with living with other people, because
right.
It was usually about setting up microphones
yeah.
and having the house to myself to work on that kind of stuff. And so I started playing around with electronic music because it was easy to do in a house full of other people, and I could do it late at night, and I didn't have to worry about bothering anyone because I was listening to headphones. And I don't know, it just started to become more interesting to me. It started to become more interesting to play around with samples, and it was easier to kind of cut to the chase of making music when I wasn't having to spend so much time and energy setting up microphones and worrying about so much kind of preliminary work before.
So it was sort of just a little bit circumstantial.
Begins. Yeah, it was definitely circumstantial, and then it just sort of that coupled with a shift in my tastes, I guess.
All right, what does it say to do in Miranda?
When you first enter the town, examine the boxes on your left to find the Revivify. you see those?
No. Where did I come in?
There in the boxes.
Oh yeah, there we go.
This is a totally faithful reproduction of the original game.
No.
Aside from the art.
I would say it's not. I would say the script is better, but the graphics. You were commenting. Right? Yeah, they changed the name there. All right, what else?
I found a remedy in the boxes on the far right side of town.
I would say that I'm really disappointed with these graphics. They're a little bit too bright and shiny for me. The original Final Fantasy VI had a really dingy quality to it, which you kind of spoke to.
Right, I remember.
A sort of dirtiness to the color palette.
Because it's like proto-steampunk, this game.
Yeah.
Right? So it has that kind of like rusty, dirty, coal-dusted kind of...
Oh, yeah.
Aesthetic to it.
It's also... It's just... Yeah, I think it's almost... Yeah, definitely steampunk elements in this one, and then sort of by the sequel, Final Fantasy VII, going full industrial. At the upper right... Let's see... And speak with the woman. Okay, I gotta speak with this lady. He sent me a record. I'm so happy. You can't do much for her right now. Leave the town and walk around the forest southeast of here.
In the exact center of the thin area near the bottom that connects the two sides of the forest, you'll find a chocobo stable.
Okay.
Do you say chocobo or chocobo?
I say chocobo.
Okay.
I'm still not convinced I went in the right... That was the right house.
Was it the upper right house?
It looks like it, but... What is this? Ew. Let's see if we... Can we just, like, totally just walk in between them? Let's see if I can stop him from running. No, it won't let me do it.
The problematic elements of these early Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah. It's too real.
Too much rape culture in Final Fantasy.
Oh, I don't know about that. Where else did stuff like that get weird? There was definitely some...
there is, really.
I like a lot of this sort of sexual stuff that goes on in Final Fantasy, like in Final Fantasy VII, where they make you dress in drag.
Yeah, well, it's classic.
It is kind of weird when you fuck on a like in like a tram car on like in an amusement park in Final Fantasy VII. But I mean,
when you fuck
who
in a
hasn't?
Tram car
When you go on there's a scene where you go on at the Golden Saucer. Yeah, it's very strongly suggested that whoever you're on a date with, you have sex.
Yeah.
Though I don't think that's the case when you go on the date with Barrett. But
no, there's just like
with Eris and
tension,
Tifa,
right?
it totally is.
Yeah, it was a very horny game for me. I mean, it came at the right time, I guess, too. My hormones were raging, and I was just being turned on by everything, I guess.
I mean, also, that's amazing because the graphics in that game now, it looks like they're made out of cardboard.
Right. Well, it was more, I mean, I guess what's beautiful is that what turned me on about the game was more of the original concept art than the sprites themselves or anything. So the illustrations that came with the instruction booklet or whatever, like, the officially... Oh, there we go.
Right, alright. Stable. Alright.
Very cool. Yeah, like the, what's his name? The Yoshitaka Amano illustrations of, like, Tifa used to turn me on quite a bit.
Yeah, she had big boobies.
It's a 12-year-old boy's dream.
Though, you know what I like about her and really all the character design in that game is that all those characters kind of look poor. Like, they kind of just look very working class. Like, Eris is just wearing, like, a really simple cotton dress and a cardigan.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, who else is there? Like, even, obviously, Barrett and Cid are these really kind of gruff characters, which you don't really get in a lot of Final Fantasy games.
No, it's true.
They're usually just all very pretty. And I kind of like the gruffness.
I do, too. And I think that's... Except for bits and pieces of Final Fantasy VIII. That's the last Final Fantasy game where I'm really into the art direction at all.
Yeah, me too.
I hate the way they design everything now. I mean, granted, I haven't really kept up with much since Final Fantasy VIII. That was kind of the last one that I was checking in for. But when I see... This is what the... What's the one that's coming out next? 15 or something?
Yeah.
Is that what they're up to? And that's supposed to be like the big open world...
I don't really know exactly what the gameplay is going to be, to be honest.
I just think it looks like shit. I hate seeing the you know, the designs when they release those, and the promotional images from the games when they come out, because I feel like they take such a huge cue from like K-pop and J-pop stars and that aesthetic, and I've never liked that. I just don't think that looks very cool at all.
Yeah.
You know, there's a real like glamour shots vibe to all of it, like they're just
really pretty boys.
Highlights in the hair and like the teased sort of hairstyles and the fashion sense is really. It's bizarre because it's like it's just a terrible juxtaposition. It's a terrible sort of union of like. Because it's not fantasy anymore. It feels it's rooted on one hand in like realism, because they're all just kind of wearing like fingerless gloves and like trench coats and ugly clothing. There's no fantasy element to it, but at the same time, it doesn't have that like blue collar, stripped down aesthetic that you're talking about in Final Fantasy VII.
Yes, so lovely.
It has like a perverted, abstracted like
pretty boys
representation of
It's all pretty boys, which a couple pretty boys would be good. I mean, you kind of look like one of those characters. Let's be honest. You could fit right in with one of them. It was all self-loathing there. Yeah, but I'm curious about this one just based on some of the way they seem to have structured the story, but I'm sure it'll let me down like almost every iteration has since Final Fantasy VII.
I guess what I mean is that there's the cartoonish element is gone.
Yeah.
They do just look like, you know, pretty boys, like perfectly rendered, like CGI.
Where's the relics?
Dudes.
Fuck. Yeah, I almost think that part of Final Fantasy VII's strength was how limited the graphics were, and that they were able to push this kind of insanely epic in scope story with these, like, by today's standards, cardboard graphics. And even then, I felt like I sort of sensed there was a strain going on with the PlayStation 1's hardware, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but what's so fun about playing a game where, you know, the graphics are so limited and you have these little sprites is that, you know, in your mind, you sort of know what you think they really look like. You know,
right.
When your imagination is that vivid when you're so young, you're thinking, like, even though I'm looking at Cloud or like the party in these like incredibly, you know, under-rendered like polygonal representations, you know, you'd wait for those cutscenes where you kind of like got to see them in all their glory, and you'd be like, "Ooh, I knew that's what they really looked like. That's like the sort of definitive version."
There's so many reality shifts going on, you know. There's them in the battle. There's them on the world map. There's them in the menu where they're drawings.
Right.
And then there's them in the CG rendered cutscenes that you're talking about. So there's a mutability there that sort of gives you space for some imagination, I think.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
And we would just draw them all the time.
Oh, yeah? You and your friends?
Yeah. And so I think, you know, you have that freedom to interpret as you wish.
Ooh, this is good.
And with these, it's like, I think it's probably a little harder to do that, because you're just drawing, like, what the fuck do I know? You know, but I assume there's, like, a little bit less wiggle room, because
there's way less wiggle room.
You're just doing, like, a faithful replication of, you know, what you're seeing in the game or online. I just remember how hungry I was and my friends were at that time to even, like, get new images of those characters, you know?
Oh, yeah, just a single drawing from Tetsuya Nomura, like, would change your whole just life around.
Well, that's what I was thinking of. Amano is is he the composer? Who is it?
Yoshitaka Amano does the watercolor.
Oh, he does the
character
initial,
designs,
like, which on the cover.
He did all the designs for this game.
Yeah,
and he's very into like Gustav Klimt and all that,
right.
that type of shit. But Tetsuya Nomura, he totally like designed the characters, I think, initially for Final Fantasy VII and for many Final Fantasies since then, but none of them have, I feel, been as diverse a group as were in that very first game.
Right. Yeah, we would be prowling these like seedy Japanese websites.
Right.
just going through directories where we couldn't understand a single character, you know? Like looking for
just an
JPEGs
image
to download. Yeah.
Because the internet was so unpowerful then that just the idea of having an image from, you know, outer space or however you want to look at it, pull up on your screen was just so mind-blowing.
Yeah, yeah. And you'd print them out because you were almost too worried that the next time you went to visit that website it wouldn't be there or something. It gets in like 404.
Oh my god, it was awesome.
But now I'm sure these, you know, the younger kids who are playing these are just bombarded with images and...
Well, it's just gotten to the point where it's completely realistic. There's no... like, the first Pokemon game, the combat sequences in that game are just so simple that you obviously have to imagine something.
I mean, they're barely animated in that game.
They're not even... They're barely animated. So you have to then... It's up to you to sort of generate the fantasy a little bit, and it sort of bridges a weird gap, not so much between video games and film, but almost between video games and literature, I think. Mm-hmm. Because the graphics make it almost a sort of forced imagination happens on you. And of course the soundtracks for all these games are so... These earlier games are so...
Yeah, that must have changed too, right? It's not the same composers working on the new
Also,
ones.
I think maybe a little bit it's the same problem where the increase in technology, the increase in what you can do for music for games made the music a little worse, you know? And they started
Well, now you have every tone at your disposal. There's
no limit.
Yeah.
There was actually no limit for Final Fantasy VII, but they still decided for some odd reason to go with MIDI.
MIDI, yeah.
And I'm really glad they did because...
Yeah, it makes the soundtrack much more fun to revisit.
Yeah, and just really a really distinct sound to it.
Yeah, yeah. Because some of those MIDI instruments have like pretty accurate representations, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like sort of like acoustic guitar sound on some of the moodier tracks is like pretty faithful, and then some are completely off, and it creates this weird dissonance.
Oh yeah, piano is pretty funny sometimes.
Yeah.
Singing when the characters are supposed to be singing.
Yeah,
it's really good. What kind of software do you use to make your music?
I mostly just use Ableton, and Ableton has like a program to source sounds, to use as sort of like a big synthesizer, and then I have some hardware that I use. But this is a nice
romantic interlude in the same army. Oh, are they in bed? Oh, they're just pillow talk. Oh, cute. Weird. I thought that was gonna be. I liked how that was not as explicit as I was sort of expecting it to be.
Yeah, it would be a little bit more giggly or something.
It was just like what people might really talk about when they were in bed with each other. I like that they, you just walk in. You just walk in. They don't care that you're there.
Yeah.
They just don't even mind. So you can't make loud noises in your house, so you start to go electronic. And what are you listening to at that time that is making you want to sound this particular way? Because I listen to your music, and, it's a little dreamy, it's a little creamy, but besides that, I can't, since there's not vocals, it's hard to prescribe a conceptual meaning to it.
Yeah, I don't know. At the time, Max and I were getting really into. We were bonding over a mutual appreciation of trip hop, which was a genre of music that I liked when I was younger, and then kind of forgot about as my tastes shifted and progressed.
Oh, yeah.
But Max and I were just getting high a lot, and and like sort of going on these intoxicated nostalgia trips a little bit, and just playing old DJ Shadow records and Portishead records and Massive Attack and Tricky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't remember how explicit the conversations were, but I guess it was like there was something about the tonal quality of that music and that stuff being made in the mid-90s that felt like it made sense again as like I don't know, a sort of like hipster aesthetic in music. You know, at the time was like, you know, well, and it's still going strong, I guess. Was, you know, like white boy R&B and like the beginning of revisiting like sultry, dreamy, down tempo kind of music. And I don't know. I guess we would laugh about how no one ever talked about trip hop, and
you really liked it.
well, it just made sense again in a way, and yeah, and we both also just very straightforwardly loved it. So I started doing that. I started like playing around with samples and old drum breaks and spoken word bits and stuff, and that also, you know, it was a nice time because it was when all of these things were kind of converging at once.
I don't know who's here.
Someone's home.
Be right back. Anybody? I'm still recording the show. That's okay.
Johnnie left the room. Johnny's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know. And so it was just, this was happening, these like sort of late night stone conversations were happening, these like revisitation of this music was happening at the same time that K-Chung was being birthed, I guess. Happened maybe, yeah, K-Chung happened a little bit after that.
Right.
And so it just became like a really nice way to put all these conversations and ideas into practice. And we started doing this weekly show, Sunday nights, like a sound collage show. It was like half kind of down-tempo electronic music, like, you know, playing tracks, and then the other half of the operation was just like a sort of more performative, improvisational exercise in layering records and creating interesting juxtapositions. You know, if you had like a classical piano record, you'd slow it down and you'd play like some sort of like spoken word poetry on top or something. You know, I think we were just trying to kind of make the sort of late night radio show that we would want to tune into. You know, driving late at night through Chinatown or something, you would tune into it.
Sure.
Like, ooh, what is this? You know, some mysterious transmission.
And but what defines trip hop? I feel like I have no way to. I can think of bands that I like that might be in that realm, like DJ Shadow or Saint Etienne.
Right.
But I don't really know exactly what makes it that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just came out of the UK artists who were creating like just instrumental hip hop. You know, it was like the dreamier qualities of hip hop without the vocals, and so it was like mostly characterized by like these kind of dusty pounding drum breaks and beats, with, you know, like a jazz sample looping overtly on top of it, yeah, just a sort of melancholy or dreaminess to it, and then that ended up getting, you know, pushed into more of like a performative or like ensemble realm with bands like Massive Attack and Portishead, where there are vocals on top, and it's a bit more songy, less just like straightforwardly loop based. But it's just, you know, it's essentially just elevated mood music,
right?
Which I think has a lot of I don't know. There's like a lot of potency. In that kind of thing. You know, it becomes interesting to like intellectualize mood music and even elevator music. You know, just the sort of the more lofty side of you know, what's considered to be background music or something like that.
One interesting thing, I don't know if it was Portishead or Massive Attack, but they came up when sampling was really harder to do for a second after, I guess, Paul's Boutique is the name of that Beastie Boys album came out, and the record label started really cracking down on sampling. But they wanted to, of course, continue to use turntables in their live shows, so they would record things, put them out on vinyl,
and sample themselves.
And then sample themselves. Right. I don't know if that was Portishead or Massive Attack.
It was Portishead.
Yeah. It's a crazy time in music, because now I feel like people, they kind of just have given up a little bit on even trying to maintain some measure of control, you know?
Yeah. It's funny who gets away with what, you know? I mean, DJ Shadow won a Guinness World Record for his album Introducing, for being the first record ever comprised completely of samples. There's nothing, I mean, I think there are like some secret little overdubs on it, but it's, it's you know, like 99% sample based. And he ended up, I think, having to credit and pay minimal royalties to like just a very, very small handful of artists. The hundreds and hundreds of samples that were on the record.
Yeah. Hundreds, you would say.
Oh yeah.
That record was kind of a bird that got away from him, though. I mean, did he ever really do anything as noteworthy as that album?
No, that's his. You know, that's his like his albatross, I guess. His cross to bear is that record, because it's something that I think that's sort of his whole shtick, is that he's been trying to run away from that record since he made it, and you know, he's one of those guys who really insists. And I guess you have to, you know, as an artist, maybe some of it's just delusion, but you have to kind of maintain like, my latest thing is my best thing, you know, and if you're only a fan of one record, you're living in the past, and you're not a real fan, and that sort of thing. And he takes that line very, very hard, and it's what makes him like a little bit tedious, and I'm like not a huge fan of anything he's done post Introducing.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got a couple of decent tracks.
Yeah.
You know, and the one that followed that one, Private Press, but it's hard, I guess, to make like what's kind of a perfect record very, very early in your career, and then you have to live with that for a couple decades afterwards, where the entire world just wants you to like just revisit that.
Just play Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil or whatever it was called a million times in a row. I mean, that record also, I think, for what it was and sort of how weird and different it was, got a lot of, I mean, it was just, I guess, so good that it got a lot of distribution. I mean, I remember getting a hold of it in high school and just being, like, so excited by it, you know? And the sort of buzz around it, or my friends talking about it, I was just so, it was perfect. And it totally dovetailed with I felt like it fit in perfectly with my weird obsession with, like, these types of games.
100%. I think DJ Shadow could, you know, you could almost do like a Pink Floyd Wizard of Oz thing with DJ Shadow and Final Fantasy VII or something.
Yeah, like that. I had a CD that I would play sometimes while I played Final Fantasy VII. I don't know why I didn't want to listen to the soundtrack, but there's definitely some DJ Shadow on it. I remember. Yeah,
it's the magic of those few years, like 95, 96, 97, 98. I think that there's like a real specific, like kind of easy to locate aesthetic zeitgeisty thing happening with like the cyberpunkiness of Final Fantasy VII and stuff like trip hop and Aphex Twin. That kind of thing. It's like a little bit two-dimensional. I feel like there are so many varying, clashing aesthetics to explore now. It's all been blown open. But I think at a time when the world felt a little bit smaller, in like 96 or something, it feels like, you know, everyone's kind of wearing the same couple of costumes or something.
Sure.
But yeah, I also heard that record in high school, which is odd because it was not what I was really listening to. It wasn't indicative of like what I was listening to at that age, and I didn't even come to the rest of Trip Hop until years later. I think I heard Introducing like sophomore year of high school or freshman year of high school, and probably didn't hear like get too into Portishead or Massive Attack.
Right, I didn't know anything about any of those bands until years and years later. I still feel like I know very little about trip hop, which is bad because I
mean, there's not much to know really.
Oh, okay.
It's just, I think that genre was only alive for but it was like the genre was only alive for a few years and then it quickly goes out of fashion.
Yeah.
There's not too much to dig into.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's cool that functions as this sort of like introduction, this doorway to another sort of mood or aesthetic for high school students, because I was mostly just listening to rock music at the time, but I think it has like a real crossover appeal where someone who is mostly listening to like Nirvana and Sonic Youth and that kind of stuff can appreciate this different tone.
Because it's weird.
Still a little bit weird, I suppose.
But you're a big Springsteen fan, still.
I'm also, yeah. I mean, I wasn't at that age.
You were not?
No.
When did you come into that? Because I came into it later as well, and people always think...
Because you're from Jersey.
Because I'm from New Jersey, it was like a childhood thing.
Yeah.
When it totally wasn't.
I mean, for most of my life, most of my early life, I hated anything that sounded old. And so I didn't like, Bob Dylan, and I didn't like Bruce Springsteen. I didn't like anything that sounded hippie. I hated the sound of like a blues solo or like a blues sort of riff or something. Mm-hmm. A lot of guitar music like that left me cold. I was mostly into like grunge and post-grungy kind of sounds. Nirvana doesn't have any kind of like... I think that's why I liked Nirvana and I didn't like a band like Pearl Jam or something, because Pearl Jam had sort of... Their sound was more indebted to like classic rock.
They're also like horrible.
Yeah, I mean... I have more of an appreciation for Eddie Vedder now.
You do?
Yeah, I just think my tastes have softened so much that now I'm kind of like, I'm in the right mood and a Pearl Jam song come on the radio and I'll think like, it's not that bad.
I certainly will say that people have said my singing voice sounds like Eddie Vedder, so I can't...
Well, you have that, you get
that deep, sort of almost folk singery, almost Irish...
Yeah, I could hear you doing
voice.
Alive or Even Flow or something like that.
It's all about the storytelling,
yeah.
Pearl Jam, I think.
Sure.
He tells a lot of stories.
A real bard.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I got into Springsteen when I was like, I don't know, not until I was like 18 or 19 or something.
Yeah.
I just hated all that stuff when I was young.
And even like Led Zeppelin, you hated that?
Yeah. I'm not even the biggest fan of Led Zeppelin now, but...
Yeah, no, I definitely don't like them. It's like one of those things that it's just from high school, and so I like it, but... I also, like, very deeply I like it, but I also recognize that it's, like, totally stupid.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those bands that I don't think that I would never say Led Zeppelin sucks. It's just a band that I don't like very much.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it took me a while to get into, like, I don't know, I was probably just more avant-garde then, because I didn't really like old white man music. Yeah. And now I do.
Now you're okay with it.
No, I'm all about old white man.
Did you go see Billy Joel at the Hollywood Bowl once, I heard?
I did not.
Didn't go.
I tried to, though.
Yeah.
That's the kind of show that I wouldn't pay for, but I would love if someone took me to go see Billy Joel at the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah. That's something else that, I think the longer, maybe you disagree, maybe our feelings towards New Jersey are different or are rooted in different things, but it's like the longer I live away from New Jersey, the more certain things take on charms or become a little bit more endearing. And so I think Billy Joel, to me, represents such a specificity in his like East Coast schlockiness that doesn't exist out here. So East Coast. LA doesn't really have a Billy Joel character. I guess the closest thing they have is sort of like like the Eagles or like a Jimmy Buffett kind of vibe, where it's like people who are really, taking it easy and
right.
I don't know. It's more rooted in like leisure and hippie-ishness and psychedelia, I guess, but there's like this dorky, stuck in an office, Jewish kind of like East Coast vibe in Billy Joel's music that's so hyper specific and really doesn't exist or have much of like a West Coast counterpart or anything, and so I find that more charming as the years go by.
Yeah. Now, how do you've been like reviewed on like Pitchfork and Tiny Mixtapes and all this crap. How do you like feel about all that stuff and like your relationship to like the press?
I wish that I felt like I had more authority to even answer this question. I guess that it's like when you aren't getting any press, when you're creating music and it's completely existing in a void, as it often does, and especially when you're younger and you sort of like don't know the way that things work as well as you do as you play music for longer and as you get older, it's like you're fantasizing about getting reviewed and getting as much press as possible, and self-googling or just hoping that maybe if you sort of like put this music out there or you get into the right people's hands, like a review or like a consideration, something will kind of miraculously just manifest.
Right.
Like, oh, you know, it's true. This is really how it works. You know, you just have to kind of like, it's a boots on the ground kind of operation.
Yeah.
But that's not really the way that it works. You know, and albums that I've released where I have someone like working for me. You know, the label has hired PR people to push the record. Those are the albums where I'll get
press
reviews, get press, you know, and the ones that don't have that kind of muscle behind it, then don't get press.
Right.
You know? And so it's once you see it for what it is in that regard, at least for a musician in my particular like tier or realm or whatever, it takes some emphasis off of, you know, giving a shit about press or reviews.
Right, because you know, it's just about
paying for it.
The publicity or the...
Yeah, and it's like, and I don't think that when my record was reviewed by Pitchfork, it really translated into like more album sales for the label or anything like that. You know, some of it just feels like self-flattery or like kind of a jerk off. And I think, you know, you move into a different tier, you like move up a few rungs or something, and then press begins to mean more again or something. But I think in my particular zone, it's like a little bit inconsequential. It's just kind of something that, you know, if your album comes out and you like get a few good reviews, or you get like, you know, you see your name in a few different places in your like little press photo and things like that, you feel like, well, you know, it amounted to something. I accomplished something beyond the music, and that can get like a little bit funky because it's, you know, there's still like kind of a big gap between those two ideas, I guess.
And what's your relationship to your own sort of like social media realm? Like, how do you feel about the way you use social media?
I just troll, I think.
You can be a little shady. That's what I'm trying to get into here in this last few minutes. I'm trying to get into some meat in these last few minutes.
I mean, let's
drag it out.
I'm not. I think I feel some sense of shame in just straightforwardly self-promoting. It just doesn't agree with me. I wish I was a little bit more free in that, you know? I'm not, which is not to say that I'm not like arrogant or full of shit or full of myself, but I just, I don't know, I just feel uncomfortable sometimes being too like, hey, this thing came out and you should all go buy it or check it out or watch this, which is useless. You just have to check that shame or, you know, whatever you're kind of tethered to, these notions of like feeling guilt or apprehension or something, and just go for it. But I guess what I do end up using, I mean, I'm not too active on social media, but when I do get on, it's mostly just to bitch and moan. Or to troll.
Sure.
I always appreciate you giving me a little.
Well, because I don't...
acknowledgement for the shade of it all.
I mean, sometimes I think it's funny, but I just think, why? You know? Why be negative? It's not... I mean, I'm half the time I agree with you. Whoever you're making fun of is stupid. Like, I don't know who it is, Jamie XX or something like that. I don't really like his music in any way, but it's like, it doesn't make you any cool. I don't know. In that moment, I just don't feel like it's just not doing anything for you, you know? And I'm all about you know me. I love it. I love social media, and I love getting attention.
You're
and
in constant dialogue.
So but see, I've been negative too, I'm sure, but not with anyone in my immediate realm.
No, you keep it pretty positive. I think most people keep it pretty positive. I think I just think there's, I don't know, like a softness in hater culture, outrage culture, where it's sort of like, I don't know, it's very like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Which is like, just okay.
Okay.
I think. But I think that people are still beyond that like very, very thin facade of positivity. People are homicidally competitive and...
That's absolutely true.
And out to, achieve more than their peers, and everyone's sort of like competing to see who's gonna get the most press and who's gonna sort of like advance their career this month and that sort of thing. And I don't know, I feel like a little bit of shit talking, as long as as long as it's not humorless.
Yeah.
Is cathartic and playful and more honest than just like a hammering likes on everyone's
right.
Post who you secretly wish to fail or something.
Exactly. I mean, I could be the real, dickhead here because I feel like I kind of wait sometimes to see if the jury's out, on something before if I am going to get negative,
Sure.
Which is that's really the most fucked up.
You wait to see if it's okay to talk shit, and then you
talk
shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wait to see what I'd survey the scene, the public opinion scene.
But then what's the fun in that? Because then you're just another voice in the shit talking choir.
I'm just laying my agreements on an easy target.
Right. Isn't it more fun to attempt to throw a wrench in the whole thing?
It might be.
And some of it's just, as you cast out there earlier in this conversation, a touch of self-loathing. I can talk as much shit about the LA Art Book Fair as I want, but where did I run into you this weekend?
At the LA Art Book Fair.
Right. So some of it is also just exercising my own demons and
that was very funny.
And well, yeah, that was a little one of the more playful ones.
Yeah.
Less instinctively hateful or something. But,
sure.
I mean, I think that if you're going to be doing that sort of thing, you have to inject it with humor, or else it just seems sad or pathetic. But I've just been a fan of the troll from day one.
Yeah.
Trolls throughout history.
It just makes me uneasy sometimes because I think about how everyone mostly hates everything and how everything, especially art, is mostly bad. Most of what's made is bad.
Right. And
so that's sad to me, a little bit. So, I guess I just, yeah.
But to some degree, I mean, it's also it has some shade of there's a touch of class warrior in it too, because it's there's no, I don't know, I guess you're talking about shades of trolling now, because it's what would be the benefit of, you would never talk shit or attack someone whose career wasn't doing well and they were making lousy art. That's just cruel.
That's really cruel, yeah.
There's something in it about lashing out against an art aristocracy or something.
Yeah, which is still it's crazy. I just feel on it's bad. The work is bad usually.
Right.
I was just coming to terms this year at the book fair, and they're all great and beautiful and doing beautiful things, but just how kind of white the gay guy art scene is, And maybe that's because...
Who are the heavy hitters at the art book fair as far as...
Well, first of all, I want to say this: the two things that I bought were from Massive Gay, which is a collective devoted entirely to promoting Japanese anime porn for bears. So that was not white at all.
Right.
But just surveying the other physical bodies that you see represented in sort of pornographic imagery, and you find this when you watch porn too, which I certainly do, is it's also kind of really white dominated.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and it's not something I don't know. I just have been thinking about that more lately because probably because my boyfriend isn't white anymore. So you gotta deal with that.
Yeah. Something you become more aware of.
Yeah, sometimes when we're having sex, he likes to fuck with my head and be like, colonize me.
No, he does not.
He did that to me once, yeah. He did. And I was like...
How'd that make you feel?
I was like, okay, if I think about this too much, I am going to lose my boner right now. So, I mean, I think it really became... And I thought it was funny. But when I really became aware of it was I was dating this guy, and at the time I was like a pretty heavy top, and I like to boss guys around and treat them like my son or boy or whatever. Use all that kind of language. This was a little over a year ago.
Oh, okay. So
And I kind of had told him, like, that was what was up, and he seemed into it, and, you know, he comes over, he has a couple beers or whatever, and then we go to, like, do the thing, and I'm, like, you know, about to get in there and, like, make him my bitch, and then I just realize he's black, you know? And I'm a white guy, and if I call him, if I'm like his master or whatever, that's gonna be like weird.
This is something that just occurred to you as it was about to take place?
Yeah, as it was about to take place, I'm really starting to think about this, like, and this is what he pretty much wants to happen, you know? It's that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's the ultimate sort of disadvantage of white guilt, is because he didn't get what he wanted. I certainly didn't. You know what I mean? It was like so. And then that was it, you know. It was
so what? You just couldn't go through with it, or you just had sort of mediocre sex?
I, for the first time in my life, did not get an erection, and I never had that. I never experienced that before, and it really freaked me out. I ended up going to like the doctor, going on Viagra.
Because of this one instance.
Because of this one instance, yeah,
wow,
it really fucked me. Because I
huh?
used to be like, and I still am. I am again now. Like I could. Like have an orgasm and then like still keep going if you wanted or something like that.
Lucky you.
Yeah, but for a little while there, I was like up a creek. But anyway,
you just got totally neurotic about it.
I got completely, utterly neurotic about it.
How long did it take to shake that anxiety?
Like a couple months, really.
That's not so bad. You know, there are probably guys who deal with this stuff for.
And I mean, you really can just take Viagra and just have just a super boner, you know?
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
You went to the doctor and you got a prescription that easy? You just expressed your...
Yeah, well, what I did... What I did was I even worked it around, like I said, the reason I have... Because, a lot of doctors are, like, actually a little bit, like, not that sex positive. Like, I've had doctors where I'm, like, trying to talk to them about STDs and they seem sort of uncomfortable, you know? And so, with this, I was, like... the reason I have had multiple sex partners is because I can't maintain my erection. And so I need Viagra to be less sexually crazy.
Oh, you framed it.
I framed it that way. Yeah. And so then they did. And you can actually get Viagra for free through the state. You can get it for free. It takes 3 months for it to start working. But before that 3 months, I was paying out of pocket. And it cost like $40 a pill for Viagra.
Really?
So, like, every time I had sex, it was, like, a $20, $25...
Oh, you'd cut them in half?
Yeah, you cut them in half, because, like, I didn't even really need it at all, but
right.
It was almost all placebo. And then you don't really like the way you feel... I didn't really like the way you feel on it, in a way, because your nose kind of gets stuffy, and your vision gets a little blurry, even.
Huh.
The boner is out of control, but the feeling of your whole body was not great. So, anyway, that's my relationship to race and dating that we suddenly got into.
Do you find yourself, or have you found yourself in the past checking in with gay friends of yours to find, like, gay-friendly doctors or physicians? And
yes, I will say I did start going to one for when I wanted to get on PrEP, or a specialist, I guess you would say. But I would still say he really didn't understand the way it kind of worked, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, and this was a clinic that was for people who were at risk for HIV, like, which was gay guys, and also, like, some women of color, I think. And he would still ask me questions that I thought were totally ridiculous. Like, what did he say? He was like, so, how many sexual partners do you currently have? And I was like, well, I'm a single gay guy, so it's not like, a solid number. Like, it could go up and down. Who knows if I'm going to see these people again? And then he was like, 20? And I was like, 20? And then he was like, in the past 6 months? And then I was like, yeah, 20. And then he was like, are you having anonymous sex? And I was like, well, define anonymous. I mean, he told me his name.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we didn't even, like, get each other's names, but we certainly were never going to see each other again, you know?
Yeah, he followed me on Instagram afterwards.
He might have followed me on Instagram, yeah.
Some connection there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess doctors are judgmental even to their straight patients too. You know. It's
yeah, they gotta be.
It's hard to escape.
Sometimes
paternal sort of like stern vibe that's put out there in the office.
Sometimes I like it. Like, I went to Planned Parenthood once, and there was this just super no-nonsense lady who was just like, why wouldn't you gotta wear a condom every time. You just gotta wear a condom. Just do it. Doesn't matter if you're on PrEP. Doesn't matter. Just wear a condom every time. Why? Because it feels better without it? Why are you doing that? Don't do that. Like, it was just like very no-nonsense.
Yeah.
Whereas other people I've been to, I literally had someone, because in the survey sometimes they ask you if you wear a condom for oral sex, and the nurse who was like, yeah, no one ever, I don't know why they asked that question, because no one ever does that.
Yeah, who's ever done that?
Yeah. So yeah, there are different layers to it, and I mean, but still I feel like I still haven't, and I think that's partially just being on Medi-Cal, I haven't found, like, the dream doctor.
Yeah.
I also have this problem where I'm, like, very aroused by the doctor's office, I think. Yeah.
No shit.
Like, no matter what, even if it's, like, a dirty old, like, an old man, like, I'm like, okay, this person's about to put their finger up my butt, time to get excited. And I don't really, I mean, I'm not, like, embarrassed or anything, but it's just kind of, I just can't believe myself every time it happens.
You're just a libidinous guy.
I think I just like the idea of someone touching your body, and it almost doesn't matter, because they're doing it for this ulterior reason, it almost doesn't matter what you look like at all, you know? Mm-hmm. And also, it's like very gentle. This sort of like set of concerns that you have when you're like performing sex are not present in the doctor's office at all, because it's all sort of for this other
it's
thing.
Physicality in a totally different context.
Yeah.
And it's all, I guess I can see the charm too of being touched with such knowledgeable hands too.
Sure.
Sort of.
And in like in way, like, you know, maybe in like a way that like
touch.
you would never think to. I don't know. I don't think it's not even that different. It's just something about the whole scenario and there's tons of gay porn of it too. It's not like just me.
Sure, you're right.
There's doctor.
Well,
it's
of course,
a whole,
the nurse is like, you know,
right, the nurse.
Straight porn
but
trope.
what's that? Why is that a thing? What do you think that is? It's the same thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, what is that? It's like, there's something Oedipal there. It's like it's just a couple degrees removed from like mommy issues, I think, you know, to have a kind of like caretaker in a sort of clinical environment. I don't think I've ever even really seen a hot nurse in real life.
No.
So some of that is just pure fantasy because, you know, the nurses are almost always disinterested and unfriendly and not particularly compassionate.
Man.
And they seem exhausted, you know. I mean,
it's a hard job.
They're at work. So I guess, you know, the joy of the fantasy of thinking about some like hot 23-year-old nurse with big tits who, you know, is so taken by the sight of you in like a hospital gown or like, you know, getting your blood pressure tested that she can't help herself to just sort of.
Oh, maybe that's a part of it, like this sort of like idea that something sexual could happen in a scenario where it normally doesn't. That's always sort of exciting.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's just, I feel like it's the foundation for so many porn tropes. Fucking your teacher, fucking your nurse.
The pizza guy,
The pizza guy, right. It's also the, I don't know, it's the anonymity and it's the circumstantial nature of just kind of like being stuck in a room with this person suddenly, and it's like, well, we might as well just fuck, you know, the pizza guy comes to the door and you're like, well, you're here, I'm here, let's fuck. Doctor leaves the room, you and the nurse are alone, well, we might as well just do it. I used to fantasize about that when I was young, when I was really young, like talking like, you know, really, really 11-year-old masturbation fantasies or something. I would fantasize about like being stuck in an elevator with a hot woman or something, you know. It was like that same idea of just sort of like being brought together with someone in a moment of like hyper intimacy, and then just like sort of letting things progress as they progress.
Sure. I think it is partially. I think I totally understand now why people go and, like, pay for sex. And it's not just, like, so they can have sex. I think it's so they can have sex and not have to worry about their performance their sexual performance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it stops being a performance and they can just get whatever they want out of it, maybe?
It's just a transaction at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's why people are also attracted to Tinder and, like, the sort of cheaper end of online dating.
Yeah.
Where it can essentially be the same transaction, just without money involved.
What's amazing, though, is that Tinder for straight people really seems like this sort of sexual thing, but for gay guys, at least, it's for dating. Because there's such a hypersexualized app world for gay guys already that Tinder is very sort of sweet and innocent in comparison. Like, that's where I met my boyfriend, on Tinder.
Right. Because with Tinder, you're just uploading pictures of yourself with your dog, and you're smiling, and you're trying to appear like more of a three-dimensional, healthy, happy human being than just a straight fucking machine.
Yeah, you can't. On gay porn apps, you unlock the nudes.
Oh, yeah?
You have the nudes already lined up. It's just an act of convenience. I didn't even really realize that, but the reason that function exists is so you don't have to take the time to go through your phone and find naked pictures of yourself. Yeah. It's so you can do it with a single click. Complete convenience.
Right.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. But it's, I guess for the hetero world, Tinder was the first real foray into, like, app-based fucking.
All right, Nick. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
On that one.
I'm glad we could get into some meat there right at the end.
My pleasure. We
got juicy.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. This has been Let's Gay with Johnny Jungle Guts. Everyone come out to my show at Human Resources. A week from today. From 6:30 to 9, I've got some video art, and it's going to be real big and all-encompassing, and you can bring your 3DS and play Zelda with me. And also, if you come in cosplay and you look really great, you might get a $100 gift certificate to go to the comic book store.
That sounds great.
And it's all about originality and humor for me. So don't overthink it, and don't just do what you need to do. Just, if you know me, you know what I'm looking for.
Just come correct.
Thanks for listening, and tune in. We're uploading twice a week.